Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Dave, where we're here to tear down the latest news and scores over all things San Jose, Barracuda, and Sharks related. This podcast is going to be a little bit of a quick one today. I'm going to the Barracuda Marlies game later. I actually went to the one yesterday as well. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about it later, but the Barracuda fumbled the game and lost 2-0. But yeah, that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. But the only thing that I really want to talk about in the news for this week, the only important thing that's worthy of talking about, is the Joe Thornton retirement ceremony. It was a very emotional night, obviously, from a player that meant so much to the San Jose Sharks. There are a lot of familiar faces that he played with over the years in his time in San Jose and around the time. And just what can you say about the guy that he meant so much to the franchise? Like when the Sharks got him in 2005, 2006, like during his whole time in his prime when he was an effective player, the Sharks were competitive. There was only 1 year that they didn't make the playoffs when he was on that team, and it was kind of like a planned, not a rebuild year, but a retool year where we got Timo Meier in the draft. So other than that, like Joe Thornton was just a dominant force. He would lead the team in scoring most of the seasons. Him and Marlo just like complement each other in terms of having that 1-2 punch. He really, really eased the load that Marlo had, the pressure that he had as the number 2 draft pick in 1997, and just having them both together was a very special thing for us Sharks fans to experience. So that's something that it's unforgettable. So obviously it's an emotional night, seeing his number go up in the rafters. A lot of great faces that actually, had speeches for him. It's crazy just to see how much of an impact he had, like not just on the ice, but like off the ice. He's considered a big party animal. He loves just being around people and around his team, and just a lot of really good stories about how just much of a fun guy he was. I did meet him once. I had the opportunity to. Unfortunately, I was a little bit inebriated back in 2010, so I didn't get a really good chance to talk with him. But he was very gracious to sign my jersey. It was Heatley and Chloe. And yeah, just nothing bad to say about the guy. He's just a generous dude, loud, just a boisterous kind of a guy, and just a well-deserved ceremony. And there's a lot of emotion going on that night, which was very, very cool. All right, let's tear into the games. Starting with the Detroit Red Wings visiting the San Jose Sharks, and the Sharks would be at home for the first time in about a week and a half, and there'd be their only home game for a little bit. They go back on the road after this game, but we want to see the Sharks obviously have a little bit more energy. They're in front of their home crowd. Hopefully that energy could make them play a little bit better. But unfortunately, the Sharks would obviously give up the first goal. As always, they can't really play very well when they're tied or have a lead apparently. But the first few minutes of the game, they were playing really well. They came out strong. They had 6 shots on net before Detroit got theirs. But in the first 8 minutes, Dylan Larkin would score. He'd be on his own. Nice little backhand snipe. You can't blame Blackwood for that. He was just kind of left all alone to do his thing. And obviously the Sharks would play behind right off the bat, which is when they played better anyway, so it was okay. Because William Eklund would get the monkey off his back and score the tying goal. Just traffic in net. I think Wenberg took the shot and they bounced off the rebound, and Eklund was just there hungrily tapping it in. So that was pretty cool to see that, he got that monkey off his back. But right off the bat, the San Jose Sharks are kind of playing a little bit behind, while the fourth line was still good. Like the Grundstrom line, I really want to point out that Warsaw should probably keep them together. The Kostin, Grundstrom, and Cunningham line was just like, they had a lot of energy out there. They're making lots of smart plays. And later in this game, actually, Cunningham would score a goal. But they even got into like a fight and everything like that. They were not stopping. Like they were completely consistent for this game. The only other players I would say that stood out to me was the Celebrini and Smith combination. They do look good together. Obviously, they're still kind of a defensive nightmare, but they were making some pretty cool plays out there. But I just want to point out that fourth line as well was just playing really well. They had a lot of great energy and defensive plays. And Celebrini just being an all-around, stud. He's just, getting some good chances on the offense, and he's also doing some great defensive plays as well. But in the second period, Eklund would actually tie the game up. So I forgot to mention the first period, Kasper was alone in front. He caught his own rebound for Detroit, and he actually scored and tied it near the end of the first period. And the Sharks, after starting strong, would end up playing behind again or being in a tie, which kind of sucks. They can't end up holding the lead on. They need to learn how to do that. So the second period though, Eklund would make it a 2-2 tie. He would tie it up, so now he's got 2 goals in the game. So that's not just only getting the monkey off his back, but like really, really coming back strong. But like immediately after, the Sharks to get the tying goal again. Rasmussen would get it unassisted. Wenberg was kind of protecting the puck, and he skated away, and it bounced off of Thrun's skate and in the net. It was like near Blackwood, and that would be another tie game. So the Sharks end up having to try and get a lead again, which is what they always try and do here. Sorry, it wasn't a tie game. They were down 3-2. And Toffoli would end up tying it near the end of the second period, 3-3 tie. There's something about Toffoli. He's always just a clutch guy. But yeah, he would tie the game up, and the Sharks would kind of be on their heels again because they're tied, and they can't seem to play very well when they're like that. So in the third period, Detroit kind of presses again, but that's where you see Macklin, Celebrini, and Smith actually ended up playing to make some really cool plays together. There was a really cool pass, went back and forth to each other, and Smith would try passing to Celebrini backdoor, and it didn't go in. But you can see the creativity between these two, which is very cool to see. And in about 7 minutes in the third period, Cunnin would get his goal. That fourth line was just really amazing in this game. But the problem is, after they had the lead, the Sharks were giving Detroit too much space to do what they wanted, and Detroit was kind of doing whatever they wanted in the third period. The problem is the Sharks, they just keep turtling. They're not aggressive enough when they have the lead. They need to play with a little bit more fire in their belly. But yeah, DeBrincat would end up, Delandry would get a tripping call, so the Sharks would be in the penalty kill to be in the box, 4-on-3 or 5-on-4 for Detroit, and DeBrincat would score, making a 4-4 tie. But yeah, it was just another kind of a play where Ferraro tries to stop the cross-ice pass, and he laid on the ice trying to block it, and it bounced off of him, and then DeBrincat got his own rebound and went in. So, Ferraro's getting a lot of crap lately. I know he's not playing the best. I think he needs an offensive guy like Liljegren to kind of play with him. He plays better that way. I don't really want to blame Ferraro because he's not I think we asked too much from him, and he didn't develop properly because he was given such a high responsibility. On a good team, he's a good third pairing guy. He blocks shots. He got a lot of energy. He's a great, presence in the room. But that kind of thing, he just tried to block the shot, and it just was a bad luck. It bounced right off him and right back to Toffoli, and Blackwood wasn't really expecting that goal, and there you are. He had a 4-4 tie, and you're going to overtime. But overtime is really the most exciting part of this game. We got to really see Celebrini just the best at him so far. He ends up getting his first overtime goal in his career, and it was a complete beauty. He kind of goes up to the goalie, and he kind of goes to the far side. He kind of dekes him out a little bit and flips it over his shoulder, and it just goes in, and it was just freaking incredible. Just to see Celebrini and his skill, at his age right now, I can't even imagine what he's going to be in 3 or 4 years when he's actually, more grown as an adult, more experienced in the NHL, what he can possibly do. But in the end, the Sharks would score in overtime. They just get lucky, and they couldn't keep the lead this whole time. They ended up having to, end up tying it, and then they'd have to go against, they end up getting a goal against them, and then they have to go to overtime. So this is something the Sharks completely need to work on, and I feel like a broken record keeping bringing this up, but Macklin Celebrini did bail them out, which is a good thing, but the Sharks definitely need to work on that. All right, the second game of the week was a road back-to-back game, the first of the back-to-back for the Sharks was on the road against the Dallas Stars, and the only thing to really say is that the Sharks got smoked in this one by a better team. Obviously, Dallas is a contender this year, so it's not really expected the Sharks are going to upset them greatly, but they outshot the Sharks 31-23. The one real big thing to know about this game was Askarov was called up to be the backup for Blackwood in this game. He would actually get a start against St. Louis the next game, but that was the big news because Vanecek went down, and everyone's really excited to see what this kid can do for the Sharks in the NHL. Obviously, he had some time for Nashville, but he played mostly in the AHL. But he did have a couple of games with them to see what he was like, and it was just really exciting to see him just called up, and all the energy for the fans just talking about him was really cool to see. So going to the game, the first period was a really weird thing to start. The first period was Thrun getting a delay of game call. Usually you get a delay of game from flipping the puck from your own end of the ice into the over the glass and into the fans. But what he did was he looked like he flipped it into the scoreboard and it got stuck, and they gave him a penalty, which I've never seen before. It's a very weird play. But they would get the penalty for some reason. The Sharks would kill it either way, but it was just a really weird one. The Sharks also got in a lot of penalty trouble this period. That one was like a flub. I'll give them that one. McCaustin tripping Stankoven was just something you can't do. You got to be moving your legs and playing a little bit better. Sharks would kill that penalty as well. And then right after, Dumba would get a holding call on Celebrini. And the broadcast pointed out that Wenberg is 64% in power play faceoffs, which is pretty cool to see. Obviously, he had that heroic game against Columbus where he scored 3 goals that were scored were based off his faceoff wins in the offensive zone, which is really cool. But he's just having a pretty decent season in terms of just being that reliable two-way center that can play in the third line, and you can slot him up in the top two lines as a winger or something like that. But he's been pretty decent for the Sharks. I've been happy to see him there. But Dallas would end up killing that penalty that Dumba got. And right after, Robertson would score a goal. He spun from the hash marks and took a shot. And there was lots of traffic in front of Blackwood. And he couldn't see the puck. But what led to that goal was the Sharks turtling again. They're not being aggressive. Not just trying to attack and force the Dallas to make a bunch of bad mistakes with the puck and making a bad pass. They just turtle back and let Dallas do whatever they wanted. And Robertson ended up taking advantage of that. Near the end of the first period, Thrun would get a high sticking call on Ben. So this one is on Thrun. I can't blame him for the first penalty, but this one's just another, just move your legs, and you can't be doing that kind of stuff. Especially someone like a vet like Ben who's going to be who knows how to talk to the refs and get them on his side. So yeah, that was a dumb play by him. Fortunately, Granlund would bail the Sharks out and make it 1-1, and he would get a shorthanded goal. But this was all Eklund. He had a beautiful full pass he floated the pass, a nice saucer pass to Eklund or to Granlund, and it just gave him a breakaway, and he completely just took advantage of that and had a very nice goal. So yeah, at the end of that period, Sharks, the penalty trouble is the big thing for that one for me, and just them turtling as always, especially when they're tied or they're up. They seem to not be aggressive at all. They seem to be afraid to make moves, and that's something they really got to work on there. And they started the second period awful again. In the first minute, Johnson would score from Hintz. Dallas completely just started with all the momentum. They had all this energy, and they kept cycling the puck on the Sharks zone before Hintz would pass it to Johnson with a one-touch shot top corner, and it was just Blackwood out of position. He couldn't save it. One thing I want to point out was that Liljegren was having a great offensive chances with speed right after. He creates a chance for Dellandrea with about 5 minutes into the period, basically. So Liljegren is something that we've needed for a while. The Sharks this season, they needed a puck-moving defenseman. Defensively, he has his mistakes, and you'll see that in the Buffalo game. He does something really bad with the goal against. He has this problem where he misses the puck sometimes. He'll try and skate the puck up, and he'll just slip from his stick, and he'll just stay on the ice as he skates away. And yeah, it's something he's definitely got to work on considering he's a pro. But during this game, the offensive chances he gave were really nice. Dallas would get a penalty in the second period about 7 minutes in. And the first power play for the Sharks had some decent chances, but Toffoli would cough the puck up and give a chance for Dallas. And the second power play chance just didn't have a good enough time to set up the power play properly. I really don't like the mix that Warsofsky's trying to do right now. He's trying to keep the veterans in one power play, and then the Smith and Celebrini line in the second one. I would like to see Celebrini probably getting a little bit more minutes because he's just that good. He deserves it. Smith, you could say, deserves the chance in the second power play, but maybe it's the choice is to try and give Smith a little bit more more of a jolt to kind of play better. So with having a skill guy like Celebrini, well, he trusts the vets to kind of in power play wanted to do everything they wanted there. But yeah, so in the first 10 minutes, Ben would score from Stankoven, and Ben, after that high stick, kind of rallying for his team, being a good captain that he is, it would be 3-1 Dallas, and the Sharks would pretty much be looking back and not catch up, as we know. But yeah, in the third period, Wallman ended up getting a goal from Granlund, making it 3-2 Dallas, but at this point, it's kind of too little too late. The Dallas Stars were just outplaying them at that point, just out-shooting them. There was that hope that the Sharks would tie it because that's what they're known for, but Hintz would kind of they would end that basically. When Blackwood was pulled 5-on-4, Hintz would get the empty net goal, making it 4-2, and then Dadonov would get another empty net goal, making it 5-2 Dallas. So it was really a 3-2 game, and the Sharks had some moments where they were pretty okay, but in the end, Dallas was just the better team. They would win 5-2. And yeah, just the face-off percentage, Dallas was better by 54.7% versus the Sharks 45.3%. And yeah, the Sharks with a lot of giveaways there, 16. Dallas actually had 18 giveaways, but Sharks didn't take advantage of that at all. And yeah, the Sharks just, it's a better team. You could expect more, but you expect a little bit more of just more defensive plays, just trying to be more aggressive, but that's something that they still got to keep working on. So at this point, the season series, Dallas is now up 2-0. They won 3-2 on October 15th, and now they won 5-2, more of a decisive victory. And yeah, the Sharks would roll on to St. Louis on the next game. And the second game, where the Sharks play St. Louis on Thursday night, Askarov made his debut for the San Jose Sharks, which is probably the biggest news point of this game. Everyone was excited to see what he could do, and he did not disappoint. In the first 10 seconds, you got to see the Askarov special, where he loves to leave the net and try and play the puck. But in this case, it burned him, and hopefully it opened his eyes to how different the NHL is. right off the bat, he goes behind the net, tries to make a play with the puck, and he passes it right to Faxa in the corner. And Faxa would pass it to Walker, who's in front of the open net, and it would make it 1-0 St. Louis within the first 10 seconds. Just, rookie mistake, I guess you could say. Just it's a bad way to start the game right off behind with your new goalie. The rest of the game, spoiler alert, Askarov would actually have a pretty good game the rest of the way. He did make up for it in that sense, and he did play the puck smartly in some times, but that was just like he's a very cocky guy. He's very confident, and I think that he wanted to show what he could do in the beginning, and it burned him. So I think he needs to realize that this is the NHL. You can't get away with that kind of stuff all the time. Hopefully you'll learn about it, and even I think when the Sharks are a good team, if this Askarov is that guy for the Sharks in the future, we're probably going to see a lot of this, believe it or not. He'll probably be winning games like 1-0, 2-0 some games, and then he'll still be doing these kinds of flubs where he's going to give away the puck and maybe cost the Sharks a win or two, or maybe just tie it. But I feel that this is going to be in the cards for the future no matter what. As long as he's capable of being as good as he was for the rest of the game, then I'm not going to be too worried. But yeah, he does love to wander, that's for sure. So the Sharks pretty much are playing on their heels, which is where they play their best anyway. So at least that was more entertaining. But in this sense, the whole game itself, just a lot of mistakes. I feel like there was no chance for most of the game where a team would get, possession and a good break, or just a good setups and good just breakout plays or anything like that. Even setups in the other zone. It just felt like the puck was bouncing away and everyone was just chasing the puck, trying to catch it and trying to make something of it. And there's no real good setups on both sides. So I can't blame the Sharks. It was also St. Louis. But yeah, so after the first commercial break in the first period, St. Louis would actually get 2 penalties and the Sharks would have a 5-on-3 opportunity. Bolduc would interfere on Grundstrom and Faxa would hook Wenberg right after. And Wenberg would actually score with Granlund and Celebrini making the assist, and it would make a 1-1 game. It was just a nice cycle in the blue zone. Granlund was behind the net and passed it to Wenberg, and Wenberg just stuffs it in. Wenberg's having a little bit of a hot streak right now after scoring the last goal as well. Just like a clutch dude that just can win faceoffs and can do some stuff. Just a big guy. Just great to have him as a Shark, just as a good depth piece. So after the second commercial break, cost him get an interference call on Peraknevich. The San Jose would kill the penalty, but right after that, near the end of the period, Askarov starts to show what he's really good at. He makes this crazy athletic split save, shutting out the Blues from the shot. But yeah, he shows how he's so great, why he's expected to be a great prospect there, other than his traveling with the puck. He also made a great point-blank save near the end of that period. He's just been an incredible presence after that mistake. Like I said, the rest of the game, he was very, very good. About halfway through the second period, Jordan Kyrou would make it 2-1 for St. Louis. Kyrou was in front of Askarov, and then there are 2 Sharks covering just Kyrou in front, but Joseph would have the space to make a shot on net. Or sorry, the Sharks were covering Joseph here. Joseph and Kyrou was by himself, so Joseph would make a shot, Kyrou would get the rebound, and then it would be 2-1 St. Louis. Yeah, the Sharks just can't hold that tie. They're making these mental mistakes, but even like I said, the whole game was a lot of just bouncing around, and you had these really freak plays that would happen that would end up being goals. But that would be pretty much the most important thing of that second period. In the third period, the great play from the Lund line. Binnington would have to time to make a save, but the refs pulled the whistle early without the puck being even covered, so that was a little bit of a frustrating thing for the Sharks. But a little bit later, the Sharks would end up tying it with a Wenberg goal, who was on that hot streak from Granlund and Celebrini. Binnington was screened, and Wenberg, just with patience, would take a nice shot and snipe it in the net. One thing I want to point out was Celebrini won 2 faceoffs in St. Louis, the St. Louis zone, during the 6-on-5 when the Sharks pulled the Blackwood. He was making great plays. He was being defensive. He was kind of everywhere, and more so than his last game before that, because I did point that out, that he's a beast in terms of defensively and offensively. But I just feel like every game he's playing, he's getting a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable, and the things he can do with that puck is it's insane. And just his awareness where everyone is, he's a water bug out there. He's everywhere. So the game would go to overtime, and the Sharks kind of were toying with the puck a lot. They had possession most of the overtime, and because they're in St. Louis, the crowd's booing them because St. Louis isn't able to get the puck, but they really did nothing with it. There's a lot of plays where they tried to tire out the St. Louis team without letting them make a line change. That was really their plan. I felt like that they're just the Sharks are making line changes and cycling the puck and making sure they're hemming St. Louis in their own zone so they could not make a line change. But the Sharks really weren't making any crazy plays that were good shots or chances. It was just more of a possession game for them. And then the only one play where St. Louis had a chance is Toffoli stopping a rush after being on the ice for a long time. So again, Toffoli just showing how clutch he is. He ended up skating backwards and just lifting the stick of a St. Louis guy to break. And the Sharks ended up getting possession again. But it ended up going to a shootout. It was a pretty short shootout in this case versus last week. The only goal that was scored was Jake Neighbors. He would score 1-0, and Eklund couldn't tie it. So St. Louis would win 3-2 in a shootout. It was just a really sloppy hockey game overall. Like, no one really had great plays that were like solid, competent, good-looking plays. The Sharks looked really tired in this game. I think that might have been the reason. Like, they just came from a long road trip. They went to San Jose for one game, and they went all the way to Dallas, and then the next night to St. Louis. So, I mean, it makes sense that the Sharks would have to deal with that, but they would at least go back home for a little bit and at least rest for the game, especially the big one for Joe Thornton. Askarov did have a good debut, except for that first goal fluke. And just the three regulation goals were ugly and sloppy, except for like the Wenberg goal. So even the ones like that the Sharks ended up scoring were not like anything special. They're just dirty goals that went in because both teams are kind of mentally sloppy there. And the one thing I wanted to point out for this game with St. Louis is the Sharks giveaways were 22-16. Just an awful lot of giveaways for them. They had to really work on that kind of stuff. And yeah, they were good in the power play. They got one goal out of 2 opportunities. It was from that 5-on-3. And yeah, the Sharks would end up losing 3-2 in the shootout. And St. Louis leads the series 2-0 after winning 5-4 on October 10th. And now I'll break down the Buffalo and San Jose game. This is the big game where everyone was waiting for was Joe Thornton's retirement ceremony. So obviously emotions are high for this one, and you'd want to see the Sharks win it for Jumbo. Unfortunately, that would not be the case. We would see later. But the one cool thing about this game that the Sharks did do, which was surprising, is that they managed to get a lead. So usually the game starts and they don't really start on time, and the other team would score. But Zetterlund would actually make it 1-0. He made a really cool play and kept the puck on side, and he passed it to Eklund on the point, who then passed it to the point. And Eklund was just in front of the net, and he kind of just does a nice little deke around Reimer to score the goal. But right after that, Krebs would score. Liljegren would lose the puck, and I mentioned this in another game. I think it was the Detroit game earlier this podcast. But Liljegren is known for doing this, where he'll kind of carry the puck and then just it slips through his stick and he doesn't bring it with him. And in this case, he's just off, just leaves the Sharks zone, and Krebs just picks up Liljegren's puck that he kind of forgets, and he has a break and then he ends up scoring the goal top snipe. It was a very nice goal. Cunnin would fight Lafferty a little bit later. It was kind of a quick fight. They both fell quickly, but got to give credit to Cunnin for giving a little bit of energy to the game. And in the second period, he would be rewarded for that energy because he would make it 2-1 for the Sharks. And it's something that the Sharks aren't used to seeing, is that they're having a lead over another team, but obviously that would not last very long. Reimer would make an insane save from Celebrini. He catches it from midair, and then it bounces off of him, and he catches it from the back of his with his back. But yeah, Celebrini is just the dynamic this kid has is just unbelievable. But yeah, the Sharks would end the second period 2-1, and that's where everything kind of just falls apart. Cousins would score pretty soon into the third period. There's a lot of traffic in front of Blackwood, and he would just snipe it and ends up finding a little hole through. And it would make it 2-2, and another goal would happen with Tuck would have a breakaway goal. It was the bad giveaway from Granlund. They were in the offensive zone, in the Buffalo zone. Granlund's just trying to, I don't even know what he was trying to do. It looked like he was trying to pass it across the ice, but it looks like he kind of just tips the puck a little bit, and it goes right to Tuck, who ends up having a breakaway and scores. And then on the empty net goal to make it 4-2, Rasmus Dahlin would kind of bank it off the Buffalo zone, off the boards, and it would go perfectly in the net, making it 4-2, and that's how the Sharks would end up losing that game. They started on time in this game, but they just couldn't really put anything away there. Yeah, the giveaways again for the Sharks were really bad, 25-15. The Buffalo Sabres actually had more giveaways than the Sharks, so I got to take that back there. I'm looking at the stats, reading it wrong. So the Sharks actually had 15 giveaways, and the Buffalo Sabres had 25, and the Sharks couldn't capitalize on that. But yeah, the Sharks starting with the lead, they should have been able to hold it, and unfortunately they just couldn't put away the Buffalo Sabres. The third period was just a complete mess, and the Sharks obviously didn't have as much possession because they out-hit the Buffalo Sabres 45-12, which was pretty crazy. But the Sharks just couldn't end up winning that game, which is pretty rough. They should have at least come up away with 2 points with that one, especially when it's the Joe Thornton retirement ceremony. Like, his jersey was getting raised to the rafters. it should have been a win for the Sharks, but unfortunately they couldn't do it. So Buffalo now leads the series 1-0. The Sharks will be in Buffalo on March 4th, so that'll be their chance to get a little bit of redemption. They'll have a long time to get better to before that game to really show what they're worth. Let's take a quick look at the San Jose Barracuda's week. They actually didn't have much of a crazy schedule this week. They played Sunday against the Calgary Wranglers last week, and they won in overtime, 5-4. They obviously had a good one there. I didn't really see that one, but it is a pretty good game. But I can talk more into the Toronto Marlies game where the Barracuda lost 3-0. I was at that game, and I got to say that it was actually reminding me a lot of the Sharks kinds of games where they weren't being aggressive with the puck as much. In the beginning, they started off really well. They looked like they were being very physical. Even seeing Mac Madulin throw some hits was really crazy to see. He finally using his body. There was a lot of aggression in the beginning of the game, but once the Marlies got their feet going, it was pretty much all them. The Barracuda were just like letting them do whatever they wanted. There was a lot of just bad passing plays. It reminded me a lot of the first month the Sharks played, where they didn't seem to have anything together. Everyone was just being like they're out bullied too. Like they're being pushed around near the end of the game once the Marlies got their footing. So Barracuda would lose 3-0. Romanov really played well. At least he stood on his head against the Marlies, but unfortunately the Barracuda just couldn't come up with a win there. Just a lot of this mental flubs you saw. Like even Cagnoni's very good at moving the puck, but it seemed like he was being too aggressive, especially at the end there, where the Barracuda were just kind of stopped completely playing like a team, and everyone tried to do some individual efforts there, and Cagnoni coughs out the puck and ended up being 3-0 for that one. But yeah, it was just a really, really sloppy play from the Barracuda, and yeah, hopefully they'll come back. But like from when we started this whole season, where they were like on their winning streak, it's a whole different ball game now, where the Barracuda were like. They're second place to the Wranglers, but now they drop all the way down in the Pacific Division to fourth place. They're now behind the Abbotsford Canucks and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So the whole wagon idea is kind of going a little bit. They can probably figure it out, but it's going away, that whole conversation piece about that. But yeah, they need to go against the Marlies tonight and really bring something back and just at least get a win or at least a bunch of goals, because that was a bad effort from the Barracuda, and hopefully they can turn around with it. It'll be Gabriel Carrier on the net. Yesterday was Romanov, and Romanov was very good, like I said. So yeah, let's see if Carrier can get a win for the Barracuda today. The top scorers for the Barracuda are still Colin Graff and Podorowski, who were in that first line that still play together, and Cagnoni rounds out third place with 15 points. These guys are offensive dynamos, but did not show yesterday, that's for sure, and hopefully that they can do something different today with today's game. And looking ahead, the Barracuda will be playing, obviously, the Marlies today, and they won't play again until Friday. It will be the Abbotsford Canucks, and they'll play Saturday again against the Abbotsford Canucks. They're going to be at home at least, so maybe they'll be well rested and be able to show them up. But this is a very important game, because by having those two, if they win those two games, and even if they win against the Marlies, they will jump up to at least second place and go ahead of the Canucks, who are ahead of them right now. And it's, as much as it's still early in the season, you want to see the Barracuda obviously establish themselves as a better team, but also when the playoffs come, you want to have that home ice advantage, and you don't want to be caught being like in the bottom of the standings, that's for sure. Okay, on to the scheduled win-loss segment. So this is a new segment we started a couple of weeks ago, where basically I'll look at the games ahead of the schedule for the week for the Sharks, and just break down what games the Sharks should win and lose. It's kind of a notable thing that these coaches kind of do, where they want to figure out how many points the team's going to get. They say this game we should win, or this game we should lose, just because it's based on many factors, not just how good the team is. And we're kind of just doing the same thing here to see what we think. Obviously, my last 2 weeks have not been very good. The Sharks are kind of unpredictable to see what they'll do, and obviously they're more used to losing, so I'll try and have more of a realistic view for this week. So let's start with the Kings on Monday. They'll be playing them in San Jose at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. The Kings are third place in the wild card right now in the Pacific with 25 points, 11 wins, 7 losses. They're a pretty good team. I wouldn't call them like a contender yet, but they are faring pretty well with terms of goal differentials, +6. They have 63 goals, 57 goals against. Their top scorer is the ageless wonder, Anze Kopitar, with 23 points in 21 games. Second place is Adrian Kempe with 19 points in 21 games. And Alex Lafreniere is having a breakout season for his team. He's got 15 points in 21 games. And the Kings, I would say, Based off the Sharks losing to Buffalo embarrassingly at home when it's Joe Thornton's retirement ceremony and the Kings being as good as they are, I'm going to have to say this is probably going to be a loss. Even though it's a rivalry game, you think that the Sharks would wake up for it. But I mean, they didn't wake up for the Thornton one, and I feel like there's a lot of these young guys are probably exhausted from the road trip, and even though they've been home already for a couple of days, I just think the Kings are going to beat them. It might be a close game. The Sharks always make it interesting, but I'm going to say it's going to be a win for the Kings and a loss for the Sharks. In the second game of the week, the Sharks will be facing the Ottawa Senators again at home. The Ottawa Senators are a team I fear the Sharks are probably become. It could become. I'm not saying they will, but it's one of those fears in the rebuild where you hope that they have all the talent in the world, but they just can't take that next step. And Ottawa just seems every year to be that team in the offseason where it's like, okay, we made some changes, we're going to grow, we're going to make that next step, and it looks like they're fumbling again. You know, the biggest offseason acquisition they got was Jonas Allmark, and he hasn't been able to help them get out of this funk that they have. So right now they have 17 points. They have 8 wins, 11 losses. And their top scorers are Tim Stützle, who is continue to be a stud. Obviously, he's the type of guy that the Sharks would have liked to have. He's the one draft pick that the Sharks traded for Erik Karlsson. Looks like he's at least rounding out to being a stud. He's got over a point a game, 9 goals, 15 assists. Second place in scoring is Brady Tkachuk, who's also over a point a game, 21 points in 20 games. He's continuing to will this team as best he can. He's like, that meat and potatoes type of guy. He can score goals, he can make plays, but he's also just a tough guy to play against. He's not really a flashy dude like his older brother, but he definitely is a very, very solid player to have. And if you want to win a cup, you want a guy like Brady Tkachuk on your team. Drake Batherson rounds it out the top 3 with 20 points in 20 games. So even though the Ottawa Senators are stumbling this whole season, there are 3 pretty good players that are point a game, and even Claude Giroux is 4th place with 15 points in 20 games. So I guess it's just their depth that's really hurting them right now. And I would say the Sharks should win this game. I mean, Ottawa's still better than the Sharks on paper, but the Sharks could win this one. They're at home. They should be rested by this point. And after my assumption of losing the Kings, a rival, and losing to Buffalo during a game they should have won with Thornton's retirement, 2 emotional losses, they probably should be really angry and beat the Ottawa Senators, who are a lesser team. So I'm going to say this is a scheduled win for the Sharks. And finally, the home game with Seattle on Friday and Saturday. This one's going to be a little bit quicker to break down because it's the same team, but Seattle is 21 points in 21 games. They are 6th place in the division. They're an interesting team too, kind of a confusing team when you really think about it. I really don't know what to make of them. They're kind of in the middle ground of most teams. Like they could be good enough to make the playoffs. I wouldn't say they're contenders at all, but they're definitely the type of team that you'll want to fall asleep against. Like they're a good team. They have some decent players. They have a good system, and they can make you look silly. So the Sharks, if they come away with one of these 2 games with 2 points, I'll be very happy to see. I have a feeling it won't happen in San Jose. I have a feeling they're going to lose the first game because it's an early game. It's a 12 o'clock game because of Thanksgiving, and then they're going to play in Seattle the next night. I think the San Jose Sharks might get that win and make up for it. So me being optimistic again, just looking at the week, I think that the Sharks are going to probably finish with 4 points for the week, and I always seem to assume that, but they seem to always disappoint me. But yeah, so we'll see if they can come out with 2 wins there. But yeah, that's my scheduled win-loss. So just to reiterate what I think is going to happen here, Sharks are going to lose to LA on Monday. They're going to beat the Senators on Wednesday, and in the back-to-back against Seattle, I can't pick which one, but I do think it's probably the second one. Sharks are going to lose to Seattle for one game and then win the other one, so they're going to come away with 4 points, and yeah, I'd like to see if that can happen. All right, and that does it for another week of the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. Wherever you are from and whatever you're listening from, I really appreciate you for listening, especially on this week. It's kind of a rushed job because I have to go see the Barracuda Marlies game, so I appreciate you listening, and just give me a like and leave some comments. Let me know what you think and how I can improve for you. You can check me out wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm also on Instagram at Teal Teardown Hockey and X at Teal Teardown HKY. So yeah, just wherever you want to check your podcast, I should be there for Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much again, and I will see you next week.